The Roaring Twenties is a phrase used to describe the United States in the 1920s, when culture, artistic, social, and economic aspects of the United States had dynamic changes, making it far from a return to normalcy. I added the glowing effect to this slide because that's exactly what the economy was at this time. Overall, it was a time of unprecedented industrial growth and growing consumer demand. After World War I, the United States was the world's wealthiest nation and took measures to keep it that way. We introduced tariffs on foreign imports, which made them more expensive and led to Americans buying American products and mass employment to make these products. After foreign countries retaliated and placed tariffs on American goods, we moved into a policy of isolation. The large amount of open jobs on U.S. soil also led to flocks of immigrants, so many that the U.S. needed to pass the Quota Act, which only allowed 357,000 immigrants a year in 1921. 8 years later, the quota was cut down to 150,000 immigrants a year. Based in the southern United States, the Ku Klux Klan, which could only have white Anglo-Saxon Protestants as members, never considered African Americans free after the Civil War, and terrorized African American families. Though they also hated followers of Judaism, Catholicism, and liberals, the portrayed poster says we're all loyal Klansmen, which was nearing slight truth in the United States during the 1920s when it was home to 6 million KKK members at its peak. This is a devastatingly bad change in the thoughts of society as a whole. At this time, the KKK was led by the dentist Hiram Wesley Evans, though he enjoyed being called the Imperial Wizard while with his clan as it carried out its violent plans in White Hoods. The KKK continued to be persistent through the 20s until it was eventually battled by the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. By the end of the 1920s, the KKK had been reduced to merely 30,000 members. Literature, a topic I researched independently. The 1920s began to show American literature take its own shape and finally focus on Americans. It was also a time where being an author was a profession of its own, not just a hobby for rich men with time and ideas. The most prominent works of the era came from the Lost Generation, disillusioned and cynical youths from World War I who had much to say. Notable books include The Sun Also Rises, as seen in the background, by Ernest Hemingway, which focused on now loyal and expatriate Americans residing in Europe in the 1920s. It was published in 1926. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, yet another member of the Lost Generation. The novel is said to chronicle the Jazz Age and the Roaring Twenties themselves and how it was affecting the book's American main characters, although it was only published in 1925. The late Ernest Hemingway in the top left and F. Scott Fitzgerald in the bottom right. These authors further influenced the change in American society. One of the most recognized and discussed portions of history in the 1920s is the prohibition of alcohol and the type of people it created. Originally conceived that it should be acted in the U.S. by the earlier progressives as a way to enhance public behavior, prohibition was the radical idea that made the sale, transportation, and the right to manufacture alcohol in the United States illegal. It was clear that a ban on such a widespread and eternal commodity was not respected or wanted. Even while this substance was illegal, there was a booming black market for it. Prohibition finally ended after the 1920s.